In this episode, we'll take a general look at risk management in the business world.
All businesses have to deal with risk, but successful businesses are the ones that employ good risk management. Risks come in all shapes and sizes. A risk could be a minor critical event, an event that may or may not affect the operations of the business. Or it could be volatility in financial markets, or it could be something major like the possibility of a natural disaster, such as a flood. Along with corporate governance and compliance, risk management is an important part of organizational planning and decision-making. Companies must show due diligence in these areas in order to be successful. Of course, different companies will think of risk differently. Some will accept much greater exposure to risk than others. In this case, we say they have a greater risk appetite. This may be partially determined to how much public scrutiny the corporation is subject to. Resource companies, for example, may be watched very carefully. To manage risk well, companies have to learn to diagnose potential problems. They use critical incident analysis to determine what types of risks they face and how best to prevent or deal with them.
Now let's look at the vocabulary in more detail with some definitions and examples. Risk.
Risk management.
Risk is the idea that certain events or situations can potentially bring losses to a company. The losses could affect finances, image, operations, or any other aspect of business.
Investments that involve a lot of risk often provide much larger returns.
Critical event.
Critical event.
A critical event is anything that happens which is potentially damaging to a business. A critical event could be as small as running out of printer ink or as large as an industrial accident.
During a critical event, a company's leaders need to clearly communicate their response to all stakeholders.
Volatility.
Volatility.
Volatility is the tendency to change, for better or worse, suddenly or surprisingly. A volatile investment, such as investing in a new tech company startup, can be risky but also bring great profits.
Political troubles have brought a lot of volatility to the stock market.
Natural disaster.
Natural disaster.
A natural disaster is an event in nature that causes destruction, damage, or social problems. Hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, fires, heat waves, avalanches, and droughts are all examples of natural disasters.
A natural disaster such as an earthquake or flood can severely impact a small country's economy.
Corporate governance.
Corporate governance.
Corporate governance relates to how well a company is managed. When we talk about good corporate governance, we're talking about responsible and transparent decision-making and leadership.
Good corporate governance is especially important in times of economic instability.
Compliance.
Compliance.
Following rules, regulations, and laws is compliance. The verb form of compliance is comply, and we can say that a company complies with regulations.
Our lawyers have reviewed the contract to ensure that we're in full compliance with industry regulations.
Due diligence.
Due diligence.
When we do all the necessary research and investigation before making a decision or signing a contract, we are performing due diligence. Due diligence might show that people were not honest about profits or potential problems.
Before buying a business, you must perform due diligence on both the business and the seller.
Exposure.
Exposure to risk.
In risk management, exposure is about how much risk you face. High exposure, operating in a politically unstable country, for example, means you face a lot of risk and a lot of potential damage.
My financial advisor said my exposure to risk was too great and recommended more secure investments.
Risk appetite.
Risk appetite.
The amount of risk or level of exposure that a company is willing to accept is its risk appetite. People and companies with a high risk appetite, such as venture capitalists, usually anticipate great future profits.
The company experienced many crises because its risk appetite was too high.
Public scrutiny.
Public scrutiny.
Scrutiny is close examination or study. Public scrutiny, therefore, is when the public looks closely at a person or company, especially to see whether their behavior is ethical or legal.
After scandals in companies such as Enron, corporate accounting is subject to much greater public scrutiny.
Diagnose.
To diagnose a problem.
When we diagnose a problem, we are trying to find the cause of or reasons for that problem. Just as doctors diagnose diseases, in business, we may try to diagnose what is wrong with a company, an agreement, a product, or a situation.
As a consultant, it's my job to diagnose potential problems with our clients' business plans.
Critical incident analysis.
Critical incident analysis.
Critical incident analysis is a set of techniques or methods that are used to find and solve problems in a company, a process, or a system.
Critical incident analysis has provided our company with the tools to deal with big problems when they happen.
Now it's your turn to practice some of the words we've looked at in this episode. You'll hear a series of sentences with a word replaced with a beep. Repeat the whole sentence, including the missing word. For example, if you hear,
Investors with a high risk should be prepared for possible losses.
you can say,
Investors with a high risk appetite should be prepared for possible losses.
We'll play the correct answer after each question. Are you ready? Let's begin.
Before signing the merger agreement, we spent 3 months doing due. Answer. Before signing the merger agreement, we spent 3 months doing due diligence.
An important part of good corporate is transparency. Answer. An important part of good corporate governance is transparency.
At the beginning of a critical, people may panic. Answer. At the beginning of a critical event, people may panic.
We are open to public because we have nothing to hide. Answer. We are open to public scrutiny because we have nothing to hide.